I'm sharing my presentation. Just a moment. Dear students, is it possible for you to see the full screen of my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So last time we finished with the first function of management, with strategic planning or with planning, and today we are beginning to speak about the second main function of management. Today we are speaking about the organizing. Generally, let's begin with the very beginning, not even from the history, but what is organizing? Organizing is creating some structure. Because for a manager it is rather difficult to think every time when the manager wishes to delegate some task. And I'm telling you to delegate some task, it's like managerial maybe lexics, but if we use just simple lexics, if a manager wishes somebody to do something, it's not a good idea to think about it every time. The organizational structure must be built, and if so, it is very difficult to delegate tasks. For example, our university has more than 100 educational departments. Educational departments in Ukrainian means cafedra, because we have also non-educational departments, a lot of. Okay, and at our meeting with the heads of the departments, our rector doesn't have to say, okay, as the head of the department of management, you have to do this. The head of the department of finance, you have to do the same, and to list all 100 departments. Actually, we have more than 100. So it's not a good idea. And our rector is used to saying that, okay, head of departments, um, all the head of the departments have to prepare some document, for example, some report, some pieces of report about the scientific activities of the department. And everybody who is a head of a department in this moment of time realizes that he or she has to do something. But before this point, somebody had to create this structure. And today we are speaking about the main principles of organization, and then during the second part of the lecture we will speak about the organizational structures. We will speak about different types of organizational structure, and also I promised you today I'd hope to discuss not only different types but also different philosophies of creating of organizational structures. I'm not sure that it's we'll have enough time, but I'm sure that we will discuss the main the main terms within organizing function, but maybe about the organizational structure we will speak next lecture. So I decided to put this picture here because the result of the organizational structure of organizing function is creating the organizational structure or some system of organization. It is the result of organizing. But to create the organizational structure, a manager should be familiar with main rules and main terms. And today we are discussing firstly these main rules and main terms, principles of organizing function. Generally, a very short historical adventure to the paper of Adam Smith. You must know him. This is like a Bible for management and for economics. In his paper, he wrote about a lot of things, but one example is about pins that if worker worked separately, he could make only 100 pins per day. If you don't know the word, actually there are a lot of meanings of this word pin in English, but we are speaking about these very thing. It's like in Ukrainian it is булавка. Така голка з таким тупим кінцем на іншому боці, яку можна використовувати для одягу, для того, щоб щось закріпити на одязі, таке. Sorry for my switching into Ukrainian. This sorry is for students from China. I just wanted to explain this term in Ukrainian for Ukrainians. Actually, shame on me. I don't know how it is in Chinese. But if the workers were organized into organization, and everybody in this small organization, he or she made only some operations, and the increasing of output were really phenomenal. And generally, this is the example of dividing of labor. Actually, there are a lot of examples of dividing labor in some historical books, but I would say this example is the first to be presented in the book connected with economics. You know, because it was some books connected with government. Could you say that, for example, in some Greek books connected with government or state generally was presented some evidences of dividing labor? Yes, sure, but this example, yes, is very interesting because it was presented in the book connected with economics, and I would say management. It was no word in that time, but now we know that economics has a lot of small parts. Let's say like this. And generally, if we wish to have these increasing of the organizational performance, we need to use the dividend of labor. And dividend of labor can be implemented in two ways. The first way is horizontal dividing of labor. You can see it at this very picture. Horizontal dividing of labor is dividing of labor by functions. So you do this, you do this, and you do this. Separate, okay, we can say now even not functions but business processes within some big business process. Okay, even we can say sub business processes. And this is horizontal dividing of labor, and vertical dividing of labor is a dividing of labor by the level of management. So in any organization you can find, okay, not maybe in any, it's my mistake to say it, in any big organization you can find top management, middle management, and lowest management. If organization is smaller, you can find only maybe top management and lowest management without middle management group. And if the organization is very small, just few persons, you can find only one level of management. In this situation, there is no vertical division of labor. However, typically, normally in biggest part of companies, you can find now horizontal and vertical division of labor. And division of labor is the main part of organizing processes. Generally, I told you that the synonym to organizing is actually, I would say, not maybe synonyms, but managerial synonyms. It's not a synonym in like in lexics, but if you are using these words with a manager, so manager will think about organizational structure and about delegating. Because why manager builds the organizational structure? Just to make it more simple to say everybody in his or her organization what the subordinates have to do. So let's begin with delegation. And the delegation is primary process by which managers establish formal relationship among people in the organization. And when we speak about delegation, we have also to understand the terms connected with responsibility and authority. Generally, the general managerial thinking is that we have some objective and there are some tasks to be performed to achieve this objective. And you have to understand that every task must be delegated to some subordinate. During the, not the previous, but I'm making a reference to the third lecture when we spoke about objectives and mission. I do hope you remember that without transforming mission and objectives into tasks, actually the strategy is just nice words and nothing more. So everything must be transformed into tasks, and these tasks must be delegated to some person, to some subordinates in the organization. Actually, there are two different ways of delegating. If you think that your subordinates are not smart enough, or at least, okay, maybe not all of the subordinates, but some part of the subordinates are not smart enough, you can delegate only tasks. So you just have to say, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to prepare some document, you have to sign a contract with an advertising campaign, and this company, advertising company, has to prepare the strategy for advertising campaign to increase the volume of sales for our company. This is delegating through tasks. And if you think that your subordinates are smart enough to understand the tasks to be performed to attain some objective, you just can set the objective and that's all. So you can say just, okay, your objective is to increase the volume of sales by 10% during this year or before the new year. Okay, so and in this very situation, the subordinate will think about the tasks by himself or herself. But if speaking about formal definition of organizing, organizing is the process of creating a structure for the organization that will enable its people to work together effectively toward its objectives. And generally, within the organizing as a function of management, there are two major aspects. The first is dividing the organization into subunits, and the second is authority relationships. We will speak about authority a little bit later today, but a little bit later. Delegation is the assignment of tasks and authority to recipient who assumes responsibility for them. Maybe you are not a manager now, but please think that if a task hasn't been delegated, a manager must perform it by himself or herself. So every task must be delegated. If a manager forgot to do it, so the only way to perform this task is to do it by himself or herself. And the delegation is very managerial word because maybe you remember our first lecture and definition of management provided by Ms. Follet. And she told that generally essence of management is getting work done through others. Thereafter, delegation is the principle, the essential part of managerial activities. So, when you are delegating tasks, you have to understand that you are delegating the authority. Okay, speaking a little bit forward, authority is the possibility to use the organizational resources to to complete some task. So if you ask your secretary to print some document for you, some contract, for example, it must be clear for you that he or she, I mean secretary, must have a printer at his or her office place, or maybe if it is, or okay, it must be provided by you as a manager another possibility to do it. Maybe if it is a business incubator, you know that there are some possibilities to use shared equipment, for example. So this is authority. We will speak about it today, but a little bit later. But you have to delegate the authority, the possibility to do it, but you are just sharing responsibility to do it. In my example, when a rector says to the head of departments that all the head of departments have to prepare some report. What do you think? Whether any head of department do it by himself or herself? For sure not. He or she, I mean, the head of the department will delegate the task to the person responsible, for example, for scientific activities at the department. However, if the report is not prepared, who will be responsible for this? Is it possible for the head of the department, say, when rector says, okay, why your department didn't provide the report? Is it possible for the head of the department to say, okay, I'm sorry, I delegated this task to another person and this person didn't have time or had some problems to do it? You are head of the department, you are the manager, so you are responsible for this very task. You can say, but if something hasn't been prepared, the head of the department will have the unpleasant meeting with the responsible person. Yes, he or she does, but it will be later. But first of all, it will be the first unpleasant meeting with the head of the department, with our rector. It means that responsibility can be only shared. It is a very important thing to understand. It is one of the key concept of the management, that in any organizational structure, responsibility cannot be delegated. It can be only shared. And the formal definition, what is a responsibility? Responsibility is an obligation to perform some task and to account for its satisfactory completion. So you are saying to somebody some message, for example. Actually, in organization, mostly in organizations now, it's not, there is no formal delegating. It can be delegated just by message in Viber, on Telegram, something like that, okay, you have to do it, and that's all. And usually if the task is rather important for organization, the manager asks to put the thumb up, for example, you at these messages to show that the task was accepted to be performed. And one more thing, it's very important to understand that, dear students, you have to provide some reward for every task. I would say maybe not a reward, but an incentive, because when we say the word reward, it's something in our conscious, something positive, and incentive can be both positive or negative, but we will discuss it in details in one lecture in 2 weeks. It will be in 2 weeks when we speak about motivating. But the basic, and we will speak about many of theories of motivating, but what is the same in any theory of motivating? That everybody comes to his or her working place thinking about not the organizational objectives, but about their objectives, their needs. And the art of a manager is to provide the rewards that can satisfy the needs of the given subordinate. And okay, it will be discussed later. Believe me, you will have to very interesting lecture about motivating. I do hope interesting, because I think it's the most interesting part in the formal management. But now I'd like to stress one more time that when some task is delegated, some incentive must be set. Actually, also we will speak about power in the organization, and you will see that some small tasks can be supported not with some particular incentive. It can be set for just for the position, and that's all. But anyway, it should be done. And I am stressing that responsibility cannot be delegated. A manager cannot share responsibility by passing it to a subordinate. You can say, dear professor, but you said just a few minutes ago that responsibility can be shared. It means that the worker will be responsible for this task to the manager. However, the manager will be responsible for successful completion of this task to top management. These cannot be shared. What do you think? Can it be such a situation that it is the meeting of shareholders, and the annual report is presented by a manager, by a director of the company, by the head of the company, and he or she says, okay, dear shareholders, we have to the dividends will be lower compared with the previous year, because, but it's not my fault, the worker Ivanov came to his working place drunk, and he damaged his arm, and because of he was drunk. And we had to pay a big penalty about this accident, but it's not my fault, it's the fault of the worker of the Ivanov. Is it possible? Completely not. You know that it's just a joke. Because if you are director, if you head of the company, you have to build such a system in the company to prevent such accidents. So everybody must be checked. In any shop, it must be some departments or some other parts somehow. So every worker must be checked somehow before beginning of the working day. And you know, it's not the responsibility of the head of the company to do it. No, but he has to create a system to do it. That's why a manager is responsible for everything connected with the department, or if we are speaking about the head of the company in any about anything what is going wrong in the company. Here you can see the another example. It is example from the book Albert Mescan and Hideo Uri, Fundamentals of Management, that, for example, the head doctor is also responsible about everything in the hospital. If something is going, if something goes wrong, and I mean, you know that medicine is how to say there are some, it can be some problems connected with the health of human health, but the responsibility is that all the procedures must be provided regarding the written procedure connected with the disease, for example. And the head doctor is responsible for everything in the organization. And dear students, I decided to put this picture here just to stress that top managers responsible and accountable for every subordinate. So this in red marked, this red person is a head of the company, and he or she is responsible for everything in this company. Responsible for whom? For shareholders, because usually the manager is not an owner of the business. And for example, these two persons are vice directors. Maybe we have just two shops within our company. I'm reminding you that the shop means not only the place where you can buy something, but also shop means in English, I mean, the part of the production company. In Ukrainian it means not, хотів сказати, що shop має значення не тільки магазин, а й цех. So, if to just for example, if there are two shops, so these the two persons are the head of the shop, so they are responsible for everything in their department. And this is this manager, this is the lowest management, he or she is responsible for everything connected with his or her small department. However, I'm stressing one more time that head of the company is responsible for everything connected with the company. And I decided to put this picture here. Actually, I'm strongly recommending you to watch the movie 18 Again. Знову 18. Actually, this is very funny movie and very positive. But in this movie there is a mistake in translation. I know English, that's why I understand this mistake. It was translated like the box stops here, means US dollar, but the phrase was the buck stops here. This old man is Harry Truman, the 33rd President of the United States. And at his table it was the wooden table with the the buck stops here. What is buck? Buck is also, it has a lot of meaning in English, but here it means it's like some specific lexics, some informal, I would say, lexics. It means that you are trying to say, to find guilty another person, something like that. If to translate it into Ukrainian, it means, я б сказав таке слово, може воно неформальне, дуже неформальне, але отмазка. Отмазка, оце що. Оце не я винен, оце він винен. Отак от. Sorry for my switching into Ukrainian, but it's like, informal speaking. I'm trying to translate it informally. So what does it mean? It means that if you are invited into the White House, it is the office room in the White House of the President of the United States, it wasn't possible to say, I'm not guilty, I'm not responsible for it, it's my subordinate is guilty. If you are invited to the White House, to the office of the President of the United States, you have some position, and the position should be rather high, and you are responsible for everything. And it's not possible to say that you are not guilty, you are not responsible for some process. You are responsible for everything if you are invited to the office of the President of the United States. So I would say that this phrase must be put at the desk of any manager. So if the top management or middle management level person asks somebody to visit him or her to explain some situation, it's not possible to say that some other person is guilty. Okay, maybe you can say that you cannot influence the situation, but in this very case you have to explain what was done to solve the problem. So the buck stops here. And one more time, I strongly recommend you to watch the movie 18 Again. Very funny movie. It's comedy, and it's it will be a source of a good mood for you, especially in our tough times. And And you know, to be responsible for everything is very big stress. That's why the management of top levels, they are paid and they will have very big salaries. But believe me, it's very difficult. It's very difficult job to be responsible for everything. The second term connected with the organizing is authority. Authority is a limited right to use the organizational resources to perform some task. In my example, if you ask your secretary to prepare the contract, it means that it must be provided the possibilities to print it somehow. Why I decided to mark the word limited right? Because we will speak about it a little bit later today, that it means that the possibilities, the equipment should be used only to performing the tasks of the organization. For example, if the secretary wishes to print something for herself or himself, is it possible if it is just some personal tasks? No, it's not possible, because the secretary has just limited right to use the equipment, just to perform the tasks connected with the organizational objectives. And in organizations, you have to understand that authority is delegated not to every person but to positions. What does it mean? It means that when you are delegating the authority to use classrooms, okay, I don't know why I'm speaking only about our university. I'm sorry, it's because maybe I'm missing Kharkiv, I'm missing our university. Okay, so everybody, I mean every professor, every teacher has possibility, has authority to take a key from a classroom. So actually it is written in the written procedures that it is possible to take key and to deliver lectures, to organize practices. But frankly speaking, nobody reads these written instructions. However, everybody knows that we have authority to take keys and to organize lectures and practices with our students. However, coming back to the limited right. Is it possible for me to take a key and to organize a party in the classroom? Theoretically, yes, but it's not possible because it is not the objective for our university. I mean, private party. In private party, not the party with students, like some ceremony. I mean, just private party with my friends. Theoretically, it is possible, but it's forbidden for me. And we will also speak about the conflict between authority and power just in 2 or 3 minutes. The authority usually, the description of the authority usually is provided by written policies, procedures, rules, and job descriptions. But I would say I took this phrase from the managerial book, but you know, we also have some like unwritten rules in organizations, and everybody knows it, just knows, and that's all. So maybe it is a good idea to read all the instructions, but generally, if speaking about mm, some procedures, maybe it's just enough to understand it. That's all. So, for example, I think nobody. Okay, maybe somebody from you, from the students, read the laws connected with property, but even without reading it, you understand that if you are coming to a shop to buy something, it's the second meaning of the word shop. Yes, so you have to pay money. Okay, maybe your parents, when you were young, they told you that, okay, dear son, when you want to buy something, you must have money to pay for it. Yes, there are some laws, and you can read about it formally, but you just know it, and that's all. So maybe not the authority, not all the authorities are known through the written policies, procedures, rules, and the job descriptions. And you know that authority will grow from the lowest level of management to the top management. For example, if speaking about the classroom, can it be possible to take some equipment? For example, if we have a big meeting, it's a good idea to, for example, a big lecture. It's a good idea to use speakers, to use microphone. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible, but is it possible for any teacher? Yes, it is possible, but in this case, we have to ask the permission from the technical service from our university. So, you know that not everything is possible for the subordinate without a permission. And in contrast with authority, power means not what she or he, I mean manager, has to do, but what he or she can do. So the power is ability to act, or the capability to affect a situation. So maybe this example is a little bit funny for you, but can a treasurer to take money connected with the company? Yes. Is it his or her authority? No, but it is his or her power to do it. So in my example, it was just a power to organize a party with music for my friends at the university, because is it possible for me to take a key from a classroom? Yes, it is possible, but I will never do it because I mean the party because I know, I understand that it's not my power to do it. So authority, in other words, determines what a person has right to do, and the power determines what he or she really can do. And I told you that uh, there is no management without delegating. If manager cannot delegate the tasks, it must be done by himself or herself, by the manager. So let's think about the weak points of delegating. The first problem connected with delegating is the mistake: I can do it better. It's a very big mistake. You know that IQ of managers in average is much bigger than IQ of the subordinates. IQ means intelligence coefficient. You know that it's the coefficient calculated as the basis of the Ising test or IQ test. So it was some research, and in companies, some research organization, they tested the top management level managers, the middle managers, the lowest managers, and just subordinates, just workers. And it was a strong correlation between the level of management and the level of IQ. So, in average, the manager is more clever compared with the subordinate, in average. But does it mean that he or she, I mean manager, has to do everything within the organization? No, because in this situation it will be not possible to a manager to manage, you know. So you have to understand that if you feel that if you are thinking that you can do this task, you can perform this task better, it can be true, the truth that you theoretically can do it, but it is a mistake to do it, but by yourself, because your task, your work is to manage. The second, lack of ability to direct. It means it means that it's rather difficult to ask everybody to do something. So if you are choosing a position of a manager, you have to prepare your conscience to issue the orders. The third, a lack of confidence in subordinates. You know, I told you that you are responsible for everything in your company or in your department. Thereafter, you can think, okay, okay, maybe I'll do it by myself, because if something goes wrong, I will be guilty about it. I don't want to be guilty. So actually, to avoid this problem, you just have to train your subordinates to increase their qualification. And aversion to risks, it's connected with the previous idea. Even you can understand maybe that even if your subordinates are qualified enough, you'd better to do it by yourself. It is also a mistake. However, the subordinates also do not want to be delegated. Why? The easiest the easiest answer is that if you are not delegated to do something, it will be your free time. And if you are delegated to do something, you have to perform some job. However, there are some other problems connected with delegation. The first, the subordinate finds it easy to ask the boss what to do rather than to figure out the problem. Uh, it is a bad subordinate if he or she uh, is used to say, okay, I don't know what to do, just help me to understand what I can do. The correct defining, I would say, the problem is, okay, I do not understand what I have to do, but because I think that this problem is very important for our organization, I have three or maybe even more ways to solve the problem. I'd like to discuss these ways with you, I mean with the manager. So you have to explain this rule to the subordinate to avoid this problem. The second, the subordinate fears criticism or for mistakes. There are, a lot of managers just to say, okay, you are fool, you are idiot. It's a big mistake. First of all, you have to speak bad only about the problem, but not about the person, and your you have to create the good atmosphere in the organization just to avoid this problem. The third, the subordinate lacks of the information and resources needed to do the job successfully. I told you that you have to keep in mind then if you are delegating some task, you have to also to delegate the authority to use the organizational resources. Without, if you have delegated no resources, don't expect the task to be completed. The fourth, the subordinate already has or believes he or she has more work than he or she can do. Actually, this problem more connected with motivating and especially with one of the theory of motivating. We will discuss it during the lecture connected with motivating. Believe me, I promise you. The subordinate lacks self-confidence, the fifth one. Actually, you have to speak with your subordinates to increase the self-confidence. It's also part of managerial activity. And the sixth, if you have to also keep in mind, if you do not provide the incentive for the task, don't expect the task to be performed. You can ask me, Professor, we don't agree with me. You don't agree with me that you have to set the incentive for every task. Yes, you are correct. It means that, for example, if you sign a contract for some position, the rewards can be provided for something for some activities which was described earlier. But anyway, you have to keep in mind that an incentive should be provided. Without an incentive, nothing will be prepared, nothing will be performed in the organization. Okay, it's now just 20 minutes. It's not enough to discuss all the organizational structure, so we will begin with the organizational structures next time. Now I'm switching off the recording and